Hi Nadirah, how are you?
Hello. I'm all good. How are you?
Yeah, fine. I mean, it's again, I do all these interviews on Friday afternoon. It's the end of my week, and I get to chat with women riders. So obviously, it's a great time
Right,
for me. The
right,
weekend
right.
is coming, and so yeah, I'm super excited.
Nice.
And as I said earlier, especially to finally interview women riders in Malaysia, where I'm based. So yeah, for the little backstory, how I got to know you, and why I decided to interview you is because one day I was going to my Muay Thai class, and I came to the gym, and I see this Kia bike, like matte black, Brixton motorcycle, and I was like, "Oh, cool! Maybe there's a nice guy in there, that could be a nice boyfriend for me, like a nice rider." And then I asked at the counter, I said, "Hey, who's that bike belong to?" And they said, "Oh, Nadirah over there." And then I see you wearing your hijab and practicing Muay Thai, and I was like, "What the fuck? That's her. She has this bike." I was so impressed, and I found that so cool. And then, of course, I realized that we had other things in common, like of course Muay Thai, but also rock climbing. So, like nearly
Right.
every Sunday, I see you at the at my favorite rock climbing in Kuala Lumpur at Guadamai, and yeah, and so in a way, it really made me realize what I deeply believe as well, that sometimes no matter what our cultures or religion or background or age, it doesn't matter. When we have similar attitudes and values and behavior, we are much closer than what we think. So yeah, I'm super
True.
excited to have this interview with you. And so just to give a little bit more context as well to people, a little bit. So as I explained, Nadirah is one of those women in Malaysia that is challenging stereotypes. She's Muslim and she's soon 30 years old. And she's a proud single woman who rides a motorcycle, practices rock climbing and Muay Thai, and she's not afraid of speaking her mind. So from a studying background, you studied medicine in India before
Yeah.
joining the International Federation of Red Cross and Red Crescent Societies, and you're a strong advocate of women's rights. So I consider Nadirah as a free-spirited woman, obviously, and she believes that religion is personal and that nobody can force anyone to believe in anything. She started riding a motorcycle, a Royal Enfield in particular, in India when she was studying there between 2011 and 2017. And she decided to buy her own Brixton BX150X when she got back to Malaysia. But she dreams of a Moto Guzzi Nevada 750 and a KTM Duke. So my first question for you, Nadirah, is what is the common point between motorcycling, Muay Thai, and rock climbing, and what drove you to those activities, basically?
Right. So I think I might never I would say I'll never tell anyone about it, but I think it's really interesting to share with everyone here. So I used to work in a humanitarian background. So I work in a mission in Bangladesh where before I came back to Malaysia, and I work in refugee camps, and I was part of the work is also involved with engaging women's, and some of them were pretty tough. So when I come back, what happened is that I experienced some kind of, I would say, burnout and PTSD, post traumatic stress disorder. And I found myself in a very depressing. I remember going back from mission. I was at home. I was sitting and staring at the ceiling for like 3 days straight. I didn't get out of a shower. I was just tired. I just don't want to do anything. I was very depressed actually at that point. And I remember one day I just like, I need to do something. I can't sit like this forever. I have dreams and I can't sleep. And I thought like I can't live like this. I need to look for better job. I need to get better. I need to, improve. I mean, I need to get out from this darkness. So at that time I was thinking, maybe to try something new. So I went to see some couple of counseling, and one of the counselor was like, why don't you try something new? You like sports, why don't you pick something new? And because sometimes when you pick something that you've done before, sometimes it might stress you out that you used to be that good and then you're not that good. So it might could come out, get you even more depressed than you already is. So he said, why don't you try something new? So I thought, like, what is my list that I haven't done and I would like to try? So I thought, like, okay, Muay Thai seems like a good thing. That maybe I can start punching all my frustration away. And so I wrote to a couple of people actually, and I specifically went to that gym that we both went because of how well they answer my inquiries. I was really scared, never tried Muay Thai. I don't know if the trainer are well trained. What if I have a meltdown? And I have a couple of meltdowns, and I don't know if people knows about this, but there is a couple of instances I actually have a meltdown during my session in the gym, and I was like really just down, and I don't want to talk to anyone, or I just have a meltdown, and I really would say that Muay Thai literally saved my life. Like literally, just bring me. I just have clarity, and it's tiring, and it's tiring. Your body was sore, but you sleep so well, and the coaches are really nice. The people in the gym are really nice. So it's kind of like in a way that it's therapeutic for me, and I start, like, I'm gonna just stick around and I'll just get there. And I used to rock climb when I was in medical school, but we don't have good facilities, so we just go for like mini bouldering trips, and it wasn't much to sort of evolve your skills from there. So I think from Muay Thai, it gives me a bit of a confidence to take up rock climbing a bit more seriously. And I don't know if people, I mean, I think people around who doesn't know me might look at me as like, oh, she's so confident, she do this and she do that, she must be really confident. But actually people who are very close to me would notice that I'm actually really insecure about myself. So I'm quite, I have a big build. I'm actually a bit heavy for a typical Malaysian girl. I'm tall, I'm very heavy, and I would like, if you go to any climbing gym in Malaysia, everyone is so small and so skinny, and I just like doesn't seem to fit in any of these gyms, and but I think being in Muay Thai kind of like give me a confidence that, oh, I can do whatever I want, like. And then I thought, I love climbing. I'm scared of height, but that's the whole point about doing extreme sports, is that it gives you that adrenaline rush. And that's when I was like, oh, I have this courage just to take up climbing. And then I thought, why not, right? I love it. I always wanted to do it. And then I started doing that. And then comes to another courage. It's like, I want to buy a motorbike. I always wanted to buy a motorbike. I always wanted to do, learn how to drive a motorbike in clutch. And I think it's one thing leads to another. It's just like one strength after another and after it. And it's been a while. I don't remember the last time I had another meltdown or another anxiety attack. I think for me, if you ask me like what is meant for me to all these three things that I've done, this motorcycle, Muay Thai, it's just like me fighting my inner demons, my insecurities, and oh, I don't think I can do this, or I'm like, you know what, I'm just gonna do it. And then it is like the moment when I bought my bike, I don't even know how to ride a clutch, and my dad have to teach me, and he was like, why are you even buying this thing in the first place? And I'm like, I want to learn, but what best way to learn rather than getting that thing on your face, and then you have to force yourself to do it, right? So yeah, so I think all these things have in common is that they are, they kind of saved my life, I could say. And it's kind of like a way of me fighting my own demons, my own insecurities, and what I feel about, things that I always feel something about myself. And then I say, look, you have done this. Like, what else you can't do in this world. So yeah,
Yeah.
that's
So in a way, like from what you're saying, it's like by putting yourself in physical challenges that build your actual emotional strength and your psychological
exactly.
strength. So by putting your physical body out of its comfort zone, that builds your resilience and your courage. That's what's important, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, that's interesting. I never thought of it this way, because I also do the three of them, like rock climbing, Muay Thai,
Right.
motorcycling, and I was asking myself, that's why I asked you the question, what did they have in common? And for me, it was more like from a spiritual point of view that those three sports, those three activities, you cannot really be thinking about lots of different things. Like you have to really focus in the moment, and you have to
Exactly.
be fully concentrated on what you're doing. So in a way, for me, it was kind of I don't do meditation or yoga or whatever. So for me, it's
Right.
really like, taking that
Pushing yourself more and,
and really
trying
letting
not to die.
exactly. No, I wouldn't say not to that, but yeah, but being like in the moment because your brain has to be
Exactly.
fully in the moment, and that's very
Right,
difficult to
right.
do when you're running or when you do other activities that your mind wanders, you have anxiety, you think about worries or the future or whatever. But when you're rock climbing, like, you need to be really focused in the moment. And same when you're biking
Exactly.
or Muay Thai
And so you
fighting,
can't think about anything else. You just
Exactly.
have to
Yeah.
think about like, please don't punch my face, or oh my god, what
Yes.
holes I need to hold, I don't want to fall down, on those kind of things. And you just like really focus, like very, very focused. So you can't think about anything else. That's true.
Yeah, completely. So also you mentioned your father. You said that your father taught you how to fight. So one question obviously I want to ask is in Malaysia, the societal expectations on women and especially women's Muslim women are quite high. So I was wondering what are those that are the most cumbersome for you because we always hear about what a good Muslim woman should do and not do and whatever, and you don't really feel, fit into this stereotype. And I was wondering, what are your thoughts about that, and what are the most cumbersome societal expectations that you experience as a Muslim woman?
Right. So I think as a Muslim woman, we usually, we're expected to be a more decent woman, like, proper. You have to speak nicely. You're not too loud. You're not. I mean, I would say that's kind of like the expectation people have. And in the moment when I work, I remember my mom was like, "Oh, why don't you get a car?" And I was like, "I want a bike."
What about
And
what
but
about you want to get a car? Your mom wanted you to have a
yeah,
car.
so
Okay.
because I can drive, so she's like, "Why
Okay.
don't you get a car?" And then I was like, "No, I want a bike. Why don't?" Right? And then I think and I think in Malaysia we are very much privileged and very much fortunate that um w- compared to some other Muslim countries that I experienced, the women are even more conservative. And for us, I've seen, I think I took pride. That's also a thing with doing Muay Thai, rock climbing, and motorcycling. Another one thing in common, and I forgot to talk about this, and it's really related to this point, is that you find inspiring people along all the time. Everyone in the climbing gym are very inspiring. Everyone in the Muay Thai gym are so inspiring. And I've seen so many girls on their hijab and they're rocking the rocks. And I was like, how did she do that? And I think that's about being Malaysia as well, that women are not, the Muslim women, of course there are some society pressure, but at the same time, there's no limit to how we can grow. I've seen like a lot of women in hijabi. I read about this article about this lady. She traveled on a motorbike in Central Asia and such, and I was like, wow, it's just limitless, that where we can go. And I think society a little bit more open. Of course, if you're from, a bit more rural, maybe your parents are a little bit more conservative. Even my parents are a little bit more conservative. But people are opening up to this whole idea that, you can do it. Regardless, the people don't look at you like, oh, you wear hijab. I never seen a woman, nobody say that to me, and like, oh, I never seen a woman in hijab wear climbing. And that's like, nobody say that. People just like, she can climb, that's all. Like, nobody talk about how you dress or who you are, what races you are. But of course, when we talk about bikes, there's still like a bit of like people like, oh, you're the one who drive this, like, oh, I didn't thought that you're driving this. And I'm like, why not? But and also yeah, so that's kind of like and you know, you having to also in Malaysia still is, and you when you reach certain age, I think it's very much Asian thing. I think when you reach certain age, you're like, oh, you're supposed to get married, you're supposed to have families, and you are expected to, you know, be a decent woman and soft spoken, and you know, probably into makeups or cookings, and which, you know, I'm not crazy on makeup, but I do some kind of makeups, but at the same time I really love, you know, all this kind of stuff. And I think it shouldn't, you know, it's not just, I don't want people to think that, oh, if you're riding a bike you have to look a certain way. And sometimes what I like to do, and I'm just doing this for the sake of fun of it, you know, is just to kind of like, how do you say, to challenge or intimidate patriarchy in a way. So what I do is when I go to work, I used to wear a very pinky baju kurung, do you know, the traditional Malay dress, and it's like cotton, and it have like a small flowers, and it's pinky, and I will ride on my bike to go to work, just so because that I could just annoy the guys for fun, because I just think like, you know, they shouldn't, we shouldn't be in like, oh, all women ride always have to be boyish, or we have to look ugly, or I ride on my bike on heels, so whatever, right? So I think in a way that we it's really interesting to see how this we are kind of like opening that society pressure, and it's great. And but I do acknowledge there are some expectation on like how I supposed to behave, or how do I supposed to, you know, look like, or what kind of, you know, hijab I wear, or how I dress up, you know. But I think things are, I think, are pretty open in Malaysia, thankfully. Yeah.
So, what would you say gave you um, the strength basically to judge? I mean, what's the difference between a woman like you who understand that there are some society expectations, and but you decide to defy them and do whatever you like and you enjoy, and another woman who would not dare, for example. So what's the difference? What gives you the strength of challenging those stereotypes? Is it your upbringing? Is it because you are?
Yeah.
It's a question. Is it a question of generation? Is it a question of friendship? Is it a question of international exposure? Because obviously not all women are
Right.
like you. So what would you say is the difference that allowed you to go past those
Right, right.
society
I would
expectations and to
say
go past your parents' expectations as well? Because you said your parents are a
exactly,
little bit
exactly,
traditional. So how do you have the strength to
exactly.
say, well, I don't want a car, I want a bike?
Exactly. So I think I'm very lucky. I guess my parents are typically the type that they would say to you 3 to 4 times, and after that they were like, whatever, you do whatever you want. So I'm a bit lucky on that side, because if I want something, I'm very persistent on something that I want. So, and they were like, oh, whatever, we done talking to her about it or whatever, right? But
So you just
I
you
don't,
tire people down, basically. You
I
make
know.
people tired, right?
Yeah. But I think yes, I would say my education background, my international experience, and people that I surrounded myself with has a large influence into how I think and how I, you know, have these courages and whatnot. So yes, and then this is where this, you know, you who do you surround yourself with? So when you have these people who motivates you, and you kind of like, oh, you're doing this, wait, you know, let's plan something that we can do together. Let's plan a trip, rock climbing trip, or let's do a Muay Thai in Thailand. Let's go to Thailand and do Muay Thai trip or something like that. They are, again, it's all to like what kind of people you want to surround yourself with. And I think now with the advance of technology, it's so easy to reach out to people, you know. You just need to Google some woman rider, and you have your Facebook group, you know. It's so easy to gang up and find people with a common interest. But I do acknowledge that is a privilege of its own, and I know that there are women that, you know, if I'm not studying overseas and I don't have international friends, or I don't have, you know, I might not take the same way. But also sometimes we need to look into, when we talk about riding motorcycles. Actually, even in Malaysia, there's a lot of women. I mean, of course, not like big bikes, but if we deepen our horizon to talk about women that ride, the small motorcycle, regular Suzuki bike, well, modern as whatever bike it is, that, the typical kapchai, I don't know what you call it in English. Yeah. So there are women that ride those bikes, those, but of course, you know, they it's not they don't do it by choice. There are some women have to ride the bikes because that's the only thing they can afford. And I think when we look into, it's up to, there are people who do this, and I think it's not entirely new. And I think it's matter of like, who do you surround yourself with? If we want to do something, if we too scared to, take a step and buy a motorbike because it's a big of an investment, but try to look into Facebook groups, or people that are in this kind of there's a lot of clubs of people that wants to do this kind of stuff, and get to know them, get to know what they're doing and whatnot. And then there's a lot of information sharing, knowledge sharing, and then maybe you can gather that kind of more of a courage to do so. And I think but I think it's a very common thing, and I think it's not it's not something you should hold yourself back with. Yeah.
And I was wondering, how do you feel when you're riding your bike? And as motorcycling, so you told us about those adventure sports basically that helps you build your resilience and so on, but just focusing more specifically on motorcycling, is there anything in particular that brought you to motorcycling, and what did it bring to your life in particular?
Right. So I think I love traveling. I think when I was in medical school, I was known as someone who was always missing in action because I went traveling somewhere. And I think that this is what I love about bike. I think that when you stuck in Malaysia and you still want to travel, and I'm the type who take my things slowly when I travel. I don't like to travel one place for 2 days and then you have to keep moving and whatnot. I love to like soak in that environment and learn about the community, learn about the things around me, just getting that vibe. And I think when in Malaysia, because when you can't travel as much, and I think motorbike give that that sense of soaking in things when you move around one place to another. And it's so I would say it's so therapeutic, when you drive a car, of course it's convenient, you have your AC on, you have your music on, but in a car you're kind of like in your own shells, and sometimes you just focus on the roads, you just focus where you want to go, whatnot, right? It's hard to pay attention to tiny details. But when you're on a bike, especially because my bike can't go super fast, and I think it's kind of like giving you a bit of you can have a time to look to your surrounding. Oh, I didn't notice they have this building there. Oh, this building is interesting. Or some people on the streets, and it's just like it seems like it brings me back to that sense of traveling to something new. It's like you always find something new within that that place, even though it's even in my own neighborhood. And I just like, oh, I didn't notice that we have this, or I didn't know that. And bike give you that, it's relaxing, you don't think too much, and then you kind of like it's like going for traveling, but it's a much slower pace, and you can like absorb what is going on and whatnot. And it's just sometimes it's just like being outside and inhaling those winds and whatnot. Well, it's not fun when it's raining. It's even more stressful if it's raining, except
That's true.
but
That's the only drawback in Malaysia, because when it's raining, it's not like light rain.
Oh
it's like
God.
10 seconds and then you're like in a swimming pool, right?
Oh my God. I feel like there's like a tiny needles poking my hands, and then it's painful to drive when it's in a bike. But I think one of the fun thing when you do is like this bridge, and all the people, all the bikers, it seems like I'm in part of something huge. Like we are in this movement brotherhood with all other bikers, and it's so interesting sometimes just
Yeah, so maybe a little explanation for those who don't know. What happens is that when there's a heavy rain in Malaysia, all the small motorcyclists, Kapchai or every motorcycle will just stop under some bridges. And you're
Yeah.
right, it has a very fun aspect where you're all in a gang and you're all waiting with pillow bikers under the bridge until the
Exactly.
rain stops. But from a European perspective, that's totally freaking me out because you're basically on the highway, literally like you see the car that pass by you like a few
Very
centimeters
fast.
away.
Yeah.
And that's totally super dangerous. And every time I go, I really have this kind of double feeling where I'm like, oh, it's nice, hi guys, how are you? And then I look at the cars and also how Malaysian drive is pretty like
I know, that's true, that's true,
crazy.
that's true. But it's very funny to think that, sometimes they'll be like, oh, you can put, some people are really nice and they tell you like what you can do. Oh, the water will come out, put your bike here, and it feels like, you're part of like big brotherhood of motorbikers. It was a fun feeling at that time. So it's quite an experience, yeah.
That makes sense. So tell me, yeah, so I know you traveled a little bit in India. I mean, you were riding a Royal Enfield there, and last time we caught up, I told you, oh, you should come for a ride, and you told me that yeah, you were more like riding around, more like as a commuting, and you like to travel but not too far and so on. And yeah, obviously, we still have to have this ride together, right? I want to take you to
Exactly.
Chandabai because it's not that far, and it's such a beautiful ride, and
Yes.
community meeting and enjoying the nature and so on. So I definitely have to take you on. But I was wondering as well, like, do you have any specific motorcycle or travel dream?
I mean, I told you I always love a KTM Duke. I think it's just like it's really nice. I tried it once and I was like, oh, I love it. I mean, and then I love that one,
And why
and
do you
I
love it?
found
Why do you love the KTM? Is it the position? Is it the speed? Is it the style? Or,
it's the speed, it's the feel of the bike. So I like scramblers. I don't really like a big of a cafe racer person because I think it's just like it's a bit too lazy, like when you like kind of like it's almost like you're laying down, and
so you prefer more
I'm really,
more sporty
yeah, I
bikes, more
like it
aggressive.
sporty. Yeah, yeah. And then I like it to be like, you kind of like straight, standing, and you almost standing or sitting down properly, and then you go that way. And then I like I drove them once, and then I love it, and I just love like it's smooth, you transition and everything is smooth. It's very stable. It's really nice. It's just have a really nice feel when you drive to it. And I always like, oh, I want a KTM Duke. But and then I discovered about this Moto Guzzi Nevada, and it's almost similar look like my own scrambler. And I also, so I love as I mentioned, I actually like, other than KTM Duke is more on the functionality and whatnot. So Moto Guzzi Nevada is more on the aesthetic parts, and I love having that aesthetics. When people drive, people are like, oh, you have this like vintage look, and I was like, of course. I mean, if I want to ride a bike, I remember my mom's like, oh, just get a scooter. I'm like, no, if I want to ride a bike, it have to be like good. It have to have that aesthetics I want, and it have to have that whatever that I want to get a proper bike. Might as well just get a nice, decent looking motorbike. So Moto Guzzi Nevada is a bit more of aesthetic. So more of a cafe. It's almost similar to like what I have right now, but it's even more nicer way. And yeah, I always love those two. Hopefully I can buy them one day.
And in terms of travel, do you have any, like, is there any motorcycle trip that you'd love to do, like traveling with your bike somewhere in particular?
Right. So I love to go around Malaysia, like all over with my motorbike. I just don't have the courage yet to go on a long trip because I don't think if I were to do so I would say I'm a laid back traveler type, but I also really usually well prep. I will read well where to go, read my routes, how the situation or those kind of stuff. So I think one of the things that's holding me back from my road trip, large road trip, but I know you've been asking me, oh, when you're gonna go with me, and it's something to do with it because I just feel like I haven't truly understand my bikes yet. So I always think like, oh, if I were to go on a road trip, what if something happened? And I don't know much about my bike, like I don't even know how to open the seat. And I was like, those are the things. And I would love to, I guess like one of the things that I'm looking to do now is to kind of like really learn in and out about my bikes and, truly understand how things work and whatnot. And I think, that's like my to-do list now, is to kind of learn. I kind of know a bit, because I think even though we have the manual for bike, I think certain bike work in some way, like sometimes you kind of like have to kick here, and then the brakes might work better, or you have to push the brake harder, and what, even though they are same model, they have their own personality, that bikes sometimes clutch are harder on this bike and some clutch are less harder on that bike. So I really want to feel like I want to connect more with my motorbikes, learn about it in and out, and then I'll probably have a bit more confident to do like long trip and,
But is it
discover
more like,
Malaysia with my bike.
would you say it's more like getting to know your bike more on the mechanics side, or is it more about riding your bike?
Right. So I think I probably get past that riding part in a way. Sometimes there are certain parts that can't be defined by mechanics, but somehow works for my bikes. You know what I mean? And then, but yeah, for the mechanic part is, I think that I would love to, getting to know more about my bikes and just, understanding how it works and how do I do in a certain way and whatnot. Sometimes I panic, especially when it rains. So my engine will start having some smokes, and I always like, oh, did my bike burn or something? My brother was like, oh, that's normal, it's fine, it's just getting hot and it's just steaming, nothing worry. So I always think like I need to have that, a bit more understanding. But I think in a long shot, I would love to do a road trip in Central Asia and also in Caucasus, like on a motorbike. I would love to do that, like a long, maybe a few months ride just across those areas, and I would love to be able to do that. Yeah.
And but what about having your mechanics with you? Because I've done a lot of road trips, solo or in groups, and I still don't know anything about mechanics. Like, I'm terrible.
Right.
Like, I just learned recently like how the gears were working inside the engine and so on. But I was really lucky to always have my dad if something happens, like to help me repair or to go on tours with a group where there will be a mechanic or something like that.
Right.
You don't have to worry about that.
Right, that's true. But so one of the things I learned when I was in India, I mean, I love to go in a group, but I think one of the things I learned about in India is that I quite enjoy traveling by myself. One of the things is because like, I mean, I'm not like a forever alone type of person. I'm a very social person, but sometimes I feel like this kind of travel, when you do by yourself, it's actually quite fun, because in a way that you soak in the moment. Okay, first, when you travel alone, I do a lot of single trip alone. I was in Africa by myself after I finished my final year exams, and I went to 2 months in Africa and in Kenya and Tanzania, and I even lived with the Maasai family, and then at that time I remember it's just like how much I have to push my limits. When you by yourself, you don't have anyone that speak your own language, and you have to force talking to the community, the local people, and you have to force yourself to learn how to getting things around. And another thing I really love about traveling alone is that the perception that you have about the country is you and your experience alone. Because sometimes and this is important, especially because I was in India, and I traveled in India a lot. I think only in the northeast part of India I haven't been to, but it's always on my my list. But one of the things I learned when I was in India is that not it's in a quiet taste. Not everyone is really big on India, and that's a thing though. When we travel with other people, maybe sometimes we really like it, but some other people doesn't like it. And I find my taste in traveling in India is on not on the big Taj Mahal, not on this fort, but more into just on the people, observing. I really find it enjoyable to sit in the Mumbai train station, just watching those people with this the tiffins running around and how they distribute it. I find that really
It's a
fun. I
show
don't
in
think
itself.
anyone
It's
will.
a show in itself.
Exactly, yeah.
You amaze. Like you look at the people and you're like, stay
Exactly, the double wallas, and I was like, this is so fun. So again, it's not many people have that kind of, and they think that's kind of enjoyable. So, this is why I wanna. I mean, it's not like entirely. I can still travel with the mechanics, but I think on a long run, I would say in a sustainable way, I would love to be able to do my own solo trip, and to know it, just to get to know bikes in general, like as the mechanics. And I think it's also, it's really important, and also it's just like, getting to know your things that you like better. And yeah, and I wanted to, soak in that feeling. So when you travel in that foreign place all by myself, like literally in that slow-mo motion with my bikes, and really soaking in, and pushing your limits, your fears, your uncertainties, and then when you come there and you just like, this is experience I have, and I was by myself, and this is what I experienced. So I think that's on my wish list all year round. Like I wanted to do it, and hopefully anytime soon.
That is very interesting, and I totally feel you. Like, I think from what you're saying, so first step is maybe taking some mechanics class, basic maintenance.
Right.
So these we can certainly do together because I really have a lot to learn on that. And actually, you're not the first one who's telling me that. Like, even if you don't know everything
Right.
inside out, it's just again psychological to know that if anything happens, you know the
You
basics
know
and
what to
that
do.
build a
Yeah.
little bit your confidence, right? So first step.
Yeah.
Second step is maybe finding people like me who like to travel that way, taking our time,
Right.
stopping, meeting people, experiencing that maybe with small groups, and
Exactly.
then taking your own solo trip.
Yeah.
That could
Yeah.
be a nice plan of action.
That's true. That's true. Goals should start putting it on my walls, and like, future goals to do.
Yeah, to build the timeline.
Right.
Yeah, super exciting. So, anything else you'd like to add? And in particular, maybe if because I know quite a lot of women in Malaysia, when they see me riding, they tell me, "Oh, that's so cool." And especially one of the girls at Muay Thai, she's always telling me, "Oh, I see you come on your bike. I love it. You make my day." And I was like, come with me. I can teach you. I can teach you that. And they're like, oh no, I don't dare. And I think there are a lot of women who kind of don't come because of their own self-limiting belief that they cannot, or that they are afraid, or whatever. So, if you
Exactly.
have an advice to give them, or if there are some Malaysian women, listening to us and who are thinking about riding a big motorcycle, what would you tell them to encourage them?
I would honestly, all I would tell them is just fucking do it. Like, I think what things that we learn about COVID-19 is there's so much uncertainties, and this is the right time for you to just fucking doing things that you have on your bucket list, like there's no way to wait, and then there's no point to wait, and I think this is the time where, I would say it's so much easier nowadays that we have this uh we have this connectivity to internet and whatnot, that we are more connected than ever, and it's easy to find a groups that, who are we interested and whatnot. And back in olden days, when maybe my mom, if she want to go for these kind of things, she might have even more, with all this social restriction, she would not know anyone that is into this kind of thing. So I think just take that. I think don't wait for anyone. That's like one of my advice, is not to wait for anyone. If you have to do it, if you don't have a friend to do it, if you think that, oh, I want to wait for my other friends, until she want to, it's not gonna happen, and that you are more connected. Go to Facebook, go find some groups, even if you don't have any any bikes, I think a lot of ladies more happy. I'm always happy to let people use my bike for if they want to try it, and I'm pretty sure you are too. And I just think, just fucking do it, and don't wait for others. Just take that proactive approach to just reach out to people and just ask questions. Don't hesitate. And I'm pretty sure people are, and I swear to God, like all any other things like Muay Thai or climbing or biking, people are so supportive. People are nice. People want to see you progress. People want to see you take that big step, or even the small step. As long as you progress, and the community are very supportive. And just do it. And I promise you, when you look back into those days that you took that step, you'll be like, thank God I do this, like I wish I've done it sooner. And just do it. I swear to God, that's it. That's all the advice I have. Just do it.
Okay, great. So you finally could put this F word you wanted to pronounce so much. So yeah, just for
That's true.
the little backstory, Nadirah asked me if she can use the F word. I said, yeah, of course, woman, and now you managed to push it right at the end of the interview.
I know. Oh, you've been waiting for that word.
Yeah, I was wondering when you were going to put that in what context. So.
Yeah, for those who doesn't know me, I mean, if as a person, I curse all the time. I mean, not in a bad way. I usually don't curse like pointing at people, but I always like when I describe things, I would be like, oh, fucking big, and some people would be like, oh, I guess it's probably like shocking to you because you probably don't see a lot of Malay girls that curse so much in a conversation.
Yeah, but I'm not surprised anymore with you, so that's fine.
That's true.
So anyway, on this beautiful F word, thank you so much for your time, Nadirah. It's Friday, so
Thank
now
you
it's
for
nearly
having
5
me.
p.m. And so yeah, maybe I'll see you this weekend. I'll be at Guadalajara probably Sunday morning. So
Oh,
maybe I'll see you
perfect.
around.
Right. Maybe I'll see you there as well with our bikes. Thank you.
Cool. Have a great end of the day and catch up soon, Nadirah.
Right. Thank you for having me and happy to be with you. Thank you so much. We'll see you then.
Take
Bye.
care. Bye.